He was a millionaire, the owner of an empire that placed him at the top of the world. Power, success, and luxury were his constants, but there was something he couldn't achieve: inner peace. His life had always been defined by his rivalry with the De la Cruz family, especially with Clara, the daughter of his greatest enemy. But everything changed when fate brought them face to face on a business trip. The encounter between Tony Cruz and Clara de la Cruz, which seemed like just another chapter in the ongoing feud between the two families, quickly transformed into something unexpected. The attraction and connection between them grew, but with it came an internal struggle between loyalty to their families and genuine love. In this video, you'll follow a heartwarming story of forbidden love, where years of rivalry give way to a passion that defies everything. Tony and Clara will have to decide: follow what their hearts desire or continue with the rivalry that has always divided them. Watch until the end to find out how this relationship transforms their lives and reveals that sometimes, true love can arise in the most improbable circumstances. Tony Cruz had everything a businessman could desire. His real estate empire in the Philippines was booming, and his life was governed by contracts, meetings, and luxury. However, there was one constant in his existence: the rivalry with the De la Cruz family. For years, he and Clara de la Cruz, the daughter of his greatest enemy, had never crossed paths directly, but the hatred between the families had always existed, fueled by fierce competition in the real estate sector. Since childhood, Tony had been taught to despise the De la Cruz family. His parents had always encouraged him to keep his distance and never trust anyone from that family. Clara, in turn, grew up under the same influence, believing that Tony and his family were responsible for the obstacles in their business. For both, the rivalry was a legacy, and the idea of getting close to the other was unthinkable. Now, as a successful entrepreneur, Tony was faced with a significant challenge: a business partnership that put his company face to face with the De la Cruz family. The possibility of an alliance between the two companies required him to meet Clara for the first time. He knew this meeting would be crucial, but the thought of facing her made him uncomfortable. The rivalry between them wasn't something easily ignored. The trip to Cebu was scheduled. He knew fate was about to bring them into confrontation, but he never imagined it would change his life in such an unexpected way. Cebu was vibrant, with its golden coast and lively atmosphere, but to Tony the city felt cold. He felt disconnected from his surroundings, immersed in his own thoughts about the meeting that was about to take place. The rivalry between his family and Clara's loomed over him like a shadow, but at the same time, there was something inexplicable that made him feel anxious knowing she was also in the city. The hotel where the meeting was to be held was imposing and modern. Tony walked in, feeling the weight of the event's significance. As he crossed the lobby, his eyes locked onto a familiar figure: Clara de la Cruz. She was standing, talking with some local businessmen, with a serene smile and a commanding presence. Unlike many of the other guests, she wasn't surrounded by excessive luxury, but her appearance was impeccable and elegant. Tony approached her standing tall, but with a hint of curiosity he tried to hide. When she saw him, her eyes narrowed for a moment before she stood up with a polite smile. He extended his hand, trying to maintain formality. "Clara," he said, "I didn't think I'd see you in person so soon." She shook his hand firmly, but without warmth. "Neither did I, Tony. It seems our parents finally decided it's time for us to meet, huh?" The tension between them was palpable, but there was something more. For the first time, Tony felt there was more to Clara than just the stigma of an enemy. The conversation was cordial, but the chemistry, though not immediately recognized, was growing between them. Soon, the meeting began, and as they discussed business matters, Tony couldn't take his eyes off her. He tried to focus, but his mind was too occupied trying to understand what was happening. He never imagined he would feel something so strong during a simple business meeting, and it made him uncomfortable. But at the same time, he didn't want to admit what he felt. After the tense first encounter in Cebu, Tony and Clara tried to proceed with the business meeting professionally. However, the tension between them continued to grow, like a rope about to snap. Both were aware of the growing chemistry, but neither wanted to admit it aloud. Over the next few days, they found themselves crossing paths multiple times at business dinners and social events. However, each time they met, the feeling of discomfort grew. Tony wanted to believe that nothing but their family's rivalry connected them, but he couldn't deny the attraction he felt for Clara. He tried to push these feelings aside, focusing on the business. But deep down, he knew something was changing. It was during a visit to one of the projects their companies were developing together that the tension reached its peak. Tony was analyzing the plans with one of his employees when he noticed Clara watching them from a distance. He approached her, trying to keep his composure. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said with a tense smile. "I thought you'd be more interested in the numbers than the project." Clara looked directly into his eyes, not looking away. "I'm much more than you think, Tony. I'm not just someone's daughter. I can make things happen too." Clara's words hit Tony in an unexpected way. He had only known her as the enemy's daughter, but now he realized she was more than that. Clara wasn't just a pawn in her father's business. She had her own ambitions and skills. Before he could respond, Clara quickly turned away, and Tony stood there, absorbing the intensity of the conversation. He didn't know what else was happening, but he felt a wave of admiration mixed with frustration. The rivalry was still there, but now there was something more, an admiration he couldn't deny. The following days were marked by casual encounters, always under the guise of professionalism. Tony and Clara continued to collaborate on business, but there was always an underlying layer of tension between them. The facade of appearances was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Tony tried to control his feelings, but Clara was beginning to infiltrate his mind more than he would have liked to admit. One afternoon, after a long day of meetings, Tony and Clara found themselves at a social event. Another business gathering, but this time more relaxed. They talked, this time without the barriers of the corporate environment, and something changed. It was no longer about business. "I know you don't like me," Clara said, looking directly into Tony's eyes. "And I'm not a fan of what you represent either. But for some reason, I can't see you as the villain of the story anymore." Tony watched her in silence. His image of Clara was changing, but he didn't know how to react. What he had against her now seemed so small. "I don't see you as the daughter of my enemy anymore. You have something different." Clara gave a small smile. "Yes, Tony, I'm more than that. And so are you. But maybe we need to stop convincing ourselves that we're just products of our families." They parted from that conversation closer than before, but both knew something was changing. The attraction between them, which initially seemed impossible to ignore, was now a fact neither of them could avoid. As Tony walked back to his hotel room, he found himself thinking about Clara in a different way. She was no longer the daughter of the rival. She was a complex woman with her own motivations and desires. And against everything he believed, he felt he wanted to be closer to her, not as an enemy, but as something more. The relationship between Tony and Clara was becoming a minefield of emotions and contradictions. Despite the growing attraction, the shadow of the rivalry between their families hung over everything. Tony couldn't shake off the weight of loyalty to his family and the empire his father had built. He knew that if he began to give in to what he felt for Clara, he would lose everything his father had achieved: the empire, the honor, the legacy. Clara, on the other hand, also felt torn. Her loyalty to the De La Cruz family was undeniable. Her father had always been her greatest role model, and she admired him deeply. She had been raised to be a leader and to fight for her family's company's superiority. However, what she felt for Tony was beginning to cross the boundaries of what was right and expected. She no longer knew if her fight was for the company or if she was also falling in love with him. One night, after a gala event where they both attended, the tension finally broke. They were alone on the hotel balcony, gazing at the Cebu skyline, when Tony finally spoke. "You know we can't keep going like this, right, Clara?" Tony said, his voice tense. "Everything we're doing is a game. I'm risking everything. You're risking everything. Our families will never accept this. They'll never let us be." Clara looked at him, her eyes full of sadness and anger. "And what do you want from me, Tony?" "For me to choose between love and my family. To give myself to something I know will destroy everything we've built." The silence between them was heavy. Tony took a step forward, but Clara pulled back, still with the look of someone about to break. "I don't know what to do anymore, Clara," he said, finally letting his guard down. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to fight against all of this. Against what I feel for you and against what my father expects of me." She looked at him, her heart aching, but also touched by his vulnerability. "I don't know what to do either, Tony. I want you, but what about my family? What about everything they've built? I can't destroy that." The days following that conversation were marked by a silent distance. Tony and Clara tried to continue with business, but the dynamic between them had changed. They were more distant, more cautious, and what had once seemed like an inevitable connection was now being suffocated by external expectations. Tony returned to Manila with a heavy heart. He knew that his decision regarding Clara wasn't just about him or her. It was about the legacy of their families, about what he stood to lose if he followed what he felt. His father, Don Enrique Cruz, had always taught him to put business above all else, and he couldn't simply turn his back on that. At a dinner with his father, Don Enrique spoke openly about the business dealings with the De La Cruz family. "Tony, you know this partnership can't move forward without our full approval. The De La Cruz family is not someone we should lower our guard with. We can't allow them to win. We can't show weakness." Tony looked at his father, trying to hide the confusion he felt. "I know, Dad. Don't worry." But as his father spoke, Tony knew that it wasn't just about business for him anymore. He was torn between what his heart wanted and what loyalty to his family demanded from him. Every step he took toward getting closer to Clara felt like another step away from what he knew to be right in terms of his legacy. Meanwhile, Clara was also in Manila, discussing the next steps for her family. But her conversations with her father were even more tense. Eduardo de la Cruz, her father, had always expected her to follow the family plan strictly, and any personal involvement was secondary. She didn't dare disobey. "Clara," he said in one of their meetings, "you know what our mission is. What we're doing with Cruz Corp isn't just work. It's our legacy. We can't let our emotions get in the way." Her father's words echoed in her mind, and Clara felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She knew that Tony was the man she wanted, but she didn't know if she could follow her heart without destroying everything her family had built. The situation was becoming increasingly unsustainable for Tony and Clara. They had both tried to focus on business and maintain appearances, but the feelings that had arisen between them could no longer be ignored. They were dangerously approaching a point of no return, and they both knew that any misstep could destroy not only the relationships they were beginning to build but also the families that had been their main loyalties their entire lives. That was when Tony received a risky proposal from his father. Don Enrique wanted him to make a difficult decision, a strategic move to take down De La Cruz once and for all. The proposal involved a deal that would directly affect De La Cruz Corp., something that would severely harm Clara's business. Tony knew that if he accepted, he would once again be aligning himself with the war between the families, something he was starting to question. Meanwhile, Clara was also struggling with her own dilemmas. Her father was pressuring her to take drastic actions against Cruz Corp., demanding that she continue to defend the family's interests at all costs. She knew that going ahead with this strategy would mean losing Tony for good, but loyalty to her father and the family's history was preventing her from making any other decision. However, their closeness was becoming increasingly inevitable. During a secret meeting in Manila, where they were discussing the final details of the business partnership, Tony finally gave in to the need to be honest with Clara. "I can't continue with this war, Clara," he said, his face serious. "I know what my father expects of me, and I know what your family expects of you. But I can't ignore what I feel for you. I can't destroy what we have because of this endless rivalry." Clara looked at him, her eyes full of conflict. "And what if our relationship ends up destroying our families, Tony? What do we have left after that? I don't want to be the reason for another battle between our parents." "I don't either, Clara," he replied, moving closer to her. "But maybe it's time we break this cycle. To do something for ourselves, without depending on what our families have imposed on us." They stood in silence for a moment, with the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Both knew they were about to do something that would change their lives forever. The forbidden love between Tony and Clara was no longer just a matter of personal emotions, but an act of rebellion against family expectations. They were completely consumed by each other, but the world around them was not ready to accept it. The tension increased with each meeting, and as the chemistry between them intensified, the reality of the risks they were taking weighed heavily on their consciences. They began to meet secretly, exchanging furtive glances and hidden smiles. They knew that if they were discovered, the consequences would be devastating. Yet, every moment alone only reinforced what they already knew, that their love was real, and they could no longer ignore it. One evening, after a tense meeting, Tony and Clara met at a discreet restaurant in Manila. They were far from their family's watchful eyes, and for a brief moment, the world seemed small enough to contain what they felt. "I know we're playing with fire, Clara," Tony said, looking at her with a mix of love and fear. "But if this ends up separating us, I'll still think it was worth it." Clara smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "I feel the same, Tony. But sometimes I'm afraid that, in the end, all we've done will just bring more pain to us and our families." They were closer now, and the tension between them was undeniable. Tony leaned in, gently touching her face. "I can't let you go, Clara. I can't lose what we've found together." But at the same time, they knew that by giving in completely, they would be destroying years of history and loyalty to their families. The internal battle was hard, but at that moment, nothing else seemed to matter. After many weeks of tension, secret meetings, and reflections, Tony and Clara finally found themselves at the point of no return. Their feelings had become undeniable, but the weight of the rivalry between their families still haunted them. They both knew that the decision they made now would be final, and there would be no turning back. On a rainy night in Manila, after a dinner with their respective families, Tony and Clara met at the place where it all began, the discreet restaurant where they had met before. They were both tense, but they knew the time had come to make a decision. Clara spoke first, her voice low but firm. "I don't know what to do anymore, Tony. Everything I've done up until now was to follow what my family wanted. I've always made choices thinking about what was best for the business, but now I know what I want, and you're a part of that." Tony looked at her with a serious expression, but his eyes were filled with emotion. "I can't live with this anymore either. I try to deny what I feel, but deep down, I've always known you're more than the daughter of my enemy. Clara, what we have is real." The tension between them grew, but there was no more room for doubt. Tony stepped forward, and Clara did the same, both of them moving closer with an intensity that was impossible to ignore. "I know what we're doing is dangerous. But Clara, what would my life be without having met you?" Tony said, his fingers gently touching her face. Clara, with tears in her eyes, replied, "I don't know, Tony. But what I do know is that without you, my life would lose all meaning. I want to be with you, even if the whole world tells us we can't." The world around them seemed to disappear, and at that moment, nothing else mattered. They kissed, with the intensity of those who knew the love they were sharing was stronger than any rivalry or family legacy. They had broken the barrier that separated them, and now, they were ready to face the consequences of their love. The following day brought the first steps of a new reality for Tony and Clara. They had both made a decision that would change not only their lives but also the destiny of their families and empires. They knew the consequences wouldn't be easy, but they were willing to face them together. At first, their parents' resistance was fierce. Don Enrique Cruz couldn't accept that his son had chosen to ally with the daughter of his greatest enemy, while Eduardo de la Cruz was furious to learn that Clara had become involved with Tony. But slowly, they began to realize that the union between the two was not just a romantic alliance, but a strategy that could strengthen the businesses of both empires, combining the best of their knowledge and resources. The partnership between Cruz Corp and De La Cruz Inc. started to take shape, and Tony and Clara worked side by side, with renewed trust in their hearts and their future together. Although there was still resistance from some members of both families, their love became unbreakable. One quiet afternoon, while walking along the beach in Cebu, where it all began, Tony stopped and looked at Clara, smiling with an expression of pure happiness. "I don't know what the future holds for us," he said, "but I know that with you by my side, I'm ready for anything." Clara smiled back, holding his hand firmly. "We've both broken the chains of the past, Tony. The future is ours to build." They looked out toward the horizon, knowing that together, they could overcome any challenge the world would throw at them. The love that began with hatred had transformed into something much stronger, something that would unite two families and create a future based on trust, respect, and true love. And so the relationship between Tony and Clara defied everything they believed to be true. The hatred born from their families gave way to an unexpected love, stronger than any rivalry or blind loyalty. In the end, they discovered that to follow their hearts, they needed to break down the barriers of the past and embrace what truly mattered. But will their love be enough to overcome their family's expectations? What do you think the future holds for Tony and Clara? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you were moved by this story of forbidden love and overcoming obstacles, don't forget to hit like and share it with your friends. And of course, subscribe to the channel to not miss more stories like this, where love and loyalty meet in unexpected ways. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more stories that will touch your heart. Until the next video.